Okay.
So I have been looking forward to this chat for quite some while now, getting schedules together with busy people, because as everyone who's watching my channel knows, I am passionate about bringing people choices and solutions. And the great thing about the internet at the moment is there's loads of things out there and loads of choices for people about how they can take back control of their health. There's loads of free resources out there. I personally have been getting very into my Wim Hof breathing and cold showers, however hard it is for me. But also I like to offer people other choices, you know, science-based stuff, product-based stuff, so that if they need that extra help to incorporate things into their lifestyle, they've got some choices out there and some real information, more than what perhaps companies can actually put on their website. So with that in mind, everyone, I am so delighted today to have Danielle and Beth with me. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about you two, and then I'm going to ask you to sort of add to that. But Danielle, you have got an amazing story. And when I first saw it and listened to it, it really, really resonated with me, because I know quite a few people have had a similar journey. But you're such an inspiring woman, because you had a terrible accident 10 years ago or so where you were hit by a drunk driver, weren't you? And it caused quite catastrophic impact on your life. But you've managed to turn that around and do something positive with that. And I think that's such a wonderful, inspiring message to everyone. When something really rips that carpet out from under your feet, and then you can find ways around it, and you found a solution that's really helped you, and through that has opened up a really successful business where you've been able to help thousands of other people across the globe. Yeah. I mean, can you, before we get on to Beth, can you just talk us through your story a little bit?
I'd be happy to. It's crazy. You know, I think I always heard this phrase, like, things are always happening for you. And I'll tell you what, when I got hit by that drunk driver and my world had stopped, I was 23 years old. I couldn't work, you know, severe pounding in my head, couldn't focus, all the symptoms with head injury, just tick, tick, tick. And I thought, there's no way this is happening for me, right? Like, it took a little bit of time for it to evolve for me to realize, you know, why I had to go through that. But it's so interesting, Catherine, because it put me on this trajectory, this journey of healing and discovery that allowed me to come across a literal breakthrough, something called redox signaling that helps the body to initiate the repair process. It basically signals out and helps the body repair where it's damaged. And I found it because of an acupuncturist. I mean, Western medicine, they didn't really have much for me. In fact, my neurologist told me after 1 year that this was just my new normal and there was nothing more they could do for me. And he said to me, just shape your life around your symptoms. And I thought, well, you're fired. Yeah. I'm 24 and I can't function. Like, no way. And thank goodness, you know, there's other people out there that are searching, because Western medicine, like my grandfather was a doctor, there's definitely a place for it. I don't mean to bash it at all, but sometimes they just don't have the solutions. And the answer came to me through this acupuncturist. She'd started using this redox technology in her practice. I quite frankly thought it sounded too good to be true. I blew it off for several months because of that. But eventually was convinced, hey, it can't hurt you, it might help you. Like, literally, why not just try it? And I did. And Catherine, after 3 months of using it, it's like the lights came back on in my world. The pounding in my head stopped. I started to have energy again. I could focus again. And my cognitive therapist said she'd never seen anything like it in her 30 years of dealing with brain injury. And she said to me, what is that stuff you started using? Because my other clients need to learn about it. And it's so interesting because it was really that moment, she was the catalyst for me, where I went, oh my gosh, yeah, what is this stuff? You know, and I started to dive into it, and with, you know, my degree in biology, it started to make sense to me. And I went, this is something that can empower any living thing to get back to its balance. And I thought, I'm in a position to help a lot of people. And, you know, I went through all of this for a reason. And so that's, you know, kind of how we got here.
It's just amazing. And when I spoke to you sort of when I was really passionate about, you know, finding out more, and you've been so incredibly helpful, I must say, is your story really reminded me of Joe Dispenza's story. And it's just incredible, the power of living cells to rebalance themselves. You know, we're always the living cells of whatever species, and I'm going to come on to Beth about that in a minute, you know, they're always aiming to get back to homeostasis, to get back to balance. And sometimes it can be those things that really seem quite simple that can make all the difference. So before we get into the, you know, how this all works, the redox syndrome, Beth, now you are a lady very much after my own heart. We are both massive horse lovers, and you've got a professional career, haven't you, training thoroughbred race horses, which is amazing, and also a lot of experience in wellness. Can you talk us through your story and how you came across the redox signaling?
Certainly. I basically, from the very, very early on, I have not been into wellness as much as I should, because at a very early age, when you're working with horses full time, you get hurt a lot. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. You know, it's like having 1,200-pound Labrador puppies, and they don't know where their bodies are. And they, you know, they're kind of crashing around, because I work with very young racehorses. I'm the first ones to, you know, we start them here and all that kind of thing. So, I've been hurt a lot, and what's remarkable is my body has always healed. So I have had this incredible respect for the human body's ability to heal itself if you give it the proper tools. You just drink a lot of water, you give it rest, and pretty soon, guess what? You're back to normal. So I've been so blessed to have done that several times. So when this came along, a friend of mine who is a wonderful, wonderful man, who is he's a conventional doctor. He's a family practice physician, but he chafes under the yoke of conventional medicine. You know, he's always kind of looking for something different. And we used to trade back and forth. I'd say, well, what about this? And what about this? Oh, I heard about this. And he'd say, yeah, and I heard about this, but it's useless. And, you know, that kind of thing. And he called me one day and he said, Beth, I found something that is the biggest, it's the greatest breakthrough of my lifetime. I have never seen anything like this. I have never, this is something that, and I said, you're kidding me. I've never heard you talk that way. He said, I'm telling you, this stuff is remarkable. He told me a little bit about the science. My family is all scientists, and, you know, and very, very much into biological science. So I love that. I loved it. And it made so much common sense to me. It was just like, oh yeah, you help the cell, you help every cell work more efficiently. You're going to stay younger longer. Cool. And then I didn't expect to have a product experience, because I just thought, oh, I'm really healthy. I'm fine. I'm real high energy. But I had some other kinds of issues that had been long-term issues that no medication had ever helped. And I just thought, oh, there's no way that these molecules are going to help that, because nothing I've ever tried has ever helped that. But I'll take this because it's going to keep me younger longer. Well, lo and behold, sure enough, I got an incredible product experience, and I was not expecting it. So it was like the opposite of placebo. I thought, no, this stuff can't help me. It can't help that. And then all of a sudden it did. So obviously at that stage, this was 12 years ago, and we all were convinced, you know, there were those of us who were in very early, who found this product and this technology so early. And we were convinced very early that it was very safe. There is nothing that's counterintuitive to it. There's nothing, no medication, no issues, no species of animal, nothing that is going to be adversely affected by these molecules. So I was starting to pour it down everything. I gave it to my dogs. I gave it to my cats. I gave it to my horses. We were just saying, hey, this is so cool. We didn't have a lot of tools to explain what it was, but man, the product was so powerful that we had to start sharing it. And the rest is history. It's just been the most amazing, amazing journey. It keeps getting better, right, Danielle?
It does.
And this is one of the things I love, because at the moment, with everything that's gone on over the last few years, a lot of people are looking at their lives and either being forced to make changes or choosing to make changes. And so part of what I do when I work in Hamptons, now anyone who knows me, ladies, knows that I am, and Danielle will contest to this, I research out of everything. So we're all, but you know, I'm a biologist as well, and also a holistic health practitioner. But I love the balance of sort of science and spirituality. So I love to understand how everything's working at a scientific level. But then just because it looks good on paper, that's not enough to convince me. I have to try it. So I have been trying these products for the last, I'm probably on 6 weeks now. And Beth, I must say, I work with a lot of different products because professionally I work with all species. So come across, and a lot of time when you're a holistic health practitioner, a lot of time people come to you as a last resort when things have got really, really bad and they've tried everything else. So again, a bit like your story, I was thinking, you know, I've got a lot of tools in my toolkit. Can this do anything different? And that's why I'm coming back to talk to you, because yes, it really can. It can do a lot of difference. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Danielle, are you able to explain to people what are redox signaling molecules?
Yeah, so the term redox, it just stands for the words reductant and oxidant. And these molecules are made in your body. All of us are making this, every living thing, they're made in your mitochondria. And the body uses them for several different functions. And it's so interesting, Catherine, I mean, just to talk science a little, they didn't think these molecules had a function until the late 90s. They actually thought that this was like the exhaust of making your energy, your ATP. So interestingly enough, right, science, they don't know what they don't know sometimes, and it's always evolving. So they learned that these molecules actually had a role. And what they found out was that they were the signaling system. So like when you have damage, I don't know if you guys have ever thought about when you cut yourself, like how does the body know to repair that specific area? Right, this sort of thing like fascinates me. Like the body is so intelligent, but it's because there's communication going on. The cells are always talking. We're just trillions of cells. And so that call for help goes out. The body is then alerted, comes in, repairs the area. If it's too far gone, kills it off, gets a healthy cell in its spot. But what's unfortunate is that as we get older, the body's innate system, the mitochondria actually get less efficient. We start making less signaling. And so it's kind of like your cell phone, right? Starting out with 5 bars of service, and then over the years, you have less and less signal. And we all know how difficult that is to try and have some sort of communication when you have 1 bar of service. And the same happens in our body. So that call for help, it just gets weaker and weaker as you get older and older. And so the body's, you know, innate ability to find and repair goes down. And so what happens? Well, we start to have stuff like Beth was saying that like, oh, this is chronic, right? It's just part of who I am. And it's interesting because I was young, right? So I still had a lot of signal, but I had so much damage.
Yeah.
That it was like, you know, a weak call going out. So what happened? It was just like the alert system went up, it went higher, repair came in faster. So that's one of the ways I look at it. And the other role that I'll just mention is it's also the communication within your cells. Mm-hmm. So we get impacted by our environment, right? And our genes can get turned off. I think this is something a lot of people are familiar with epigenetics. But interestingly enough, redox signaling molecules, they're actually what activate the genes. They're like the signal that turns it on. And so when you put more into your system or you replenish your system's supply, you can turn back on genes that have been switched off. And it's so interesting because the company actually looked at healthy young people, like I think the average age was 35, and they were looking at the gene that influences hormone modulation, the inflammatory response, your innate immune response, digestive things, heart things. And they found that when you drink, you know, the redox, it increases the activation of those genes. And so think about if you could help your body's innate immune response stay strong.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the implications of that, I don't even think I need to say. It's like, wow, what a profound thing. And I think so many people have been waking up over the last couple of years with what's been going on, saying, wait a second, like my health is my responsibility. How do I keep my number one, you know, strong, my innate system strong? So yeah, I think the best I can explain it is in that way. That's what they're signaling molecules. They're talking, keeping everything turned on and keeping the body, you know, in balance.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love so much about it, and obviously, you know, this is just introducing it to people today for people that haven't heard about it, and we're going to come on to more about that in a minute. But I think what's so wonderful is it's so safe. So I work with lots of different products, and people know some of which I'm allowed to talk about on YouTube, some of which I'm not allowed to talk about on YouTube because some are more controversial than others. But what really hit me about this, particularly when I've been working with clients or family members that are quite nervous about trying something new, because it's literally stimulating your body to do a natural process and produce a natural thing, you can't be allergic to it. It can't cause toxicity in the body, and it can't interfere with any prescribed medication that people are on. And that's really mind-blowing to me, because I've got a lot of tools in my toolkit, but not many that tick all those boxes.
Mm-hmm. Beth, do you want to speak to that? Because it's like you should start dancing around when you hear that.
Well, absolutely. And I think one of the things that using it with animals comes into play is animals seem to respond almost quicker or more fully from the molecules earlier. You notice from Danielle's story that it took her, I don't know if you picked this up, but it took her 3 months. And she was saying, and she was saying, oh, it's not working. It's not working. And then all of a sudden the light came on. And I love that part of your story, Danielle, because it's such a powerful story, but it teaches people that, the more that you need healing, obviously it's a healing process. Well, animals, interestingly enough, respond very quickly they seem to respond quickly to the molecules. It's my theory that they're not overthinking it. They don't talk themselves out of it and say, wait a minute, this is salt and water. Surely this can't work this fast. They're just saying, hey, this stuff is great. And you'll have dogs and cats that don't want to take it at first. And then they drink it, you kind of give it in a little syringe in their mouth or something. And all of a sudden they say, hey, this is great. And they'll come ask for it. So that's the beauty of animals is they're so pure and they don't overthink it. And the fact of the matter is it works beautifully and it can't hurt them. So, and you can't placebo an animal. They can't talk themselves into it or talk themselves out of it. So it works beautifully with animals. And that's one of the reasons why I think people that are second guessing it and that are like, Danielle, it's too good to be true. That we hear that a lot. My gosh, this is so amazing, but I think it sounds too good to be true. Well, look what it's doing for animals. So, it's not something that we can make up in our own minds. It's helping our animals as well. So it's been incredibly, it's very rewarding to go and see how much it helps every species of animal. I mean, we've across the board, we've had goldfish, we've had ferrets, we've had snakes, we've had, anything that moves, anything that has a living cell is going to benefit from these molecules. So they're wonderful stories.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So much. Honestly, I could talk to you ladies all day about this. It is absolutely amazing. So let's take this one of the main products. Now, this is something that people drink. So should we talk a little bit about what this product is and how people take it and how animals take it? So if I go back to Danielle first. So this is like the cornerstone flagship product of Asea, isn't it? Can you talk us through a little bit about this, Danielle?
Yeah, it was actually the only thing that existed for a long, long time. And people, the way you drink it, the thing that we see to get the most efficacy out of it is you actually put it in 2 ounces. There's looks like a little shot glass, and you just put it into your mouth and swish it for about 30 seconds, 60 seconds if you want. We find that it gets absorbed there. And so it gets into the system and starts working pretty quickly. Then you swallow and that's that. So it's such a simple thing to do. People ask a lot of times, well, how much do I take? And I like to consult with people and have a conversation. There's really 2 big indicators. And it's, well, how old are you, right? Because as you get older, your body's making less. So if we're filling your system back up, if you're older, you might have to close a larger gap, right? You might need to drink more. And then if you have a lot of damage, right? If there's something really off in your body, like for me, then it's okay, I think about it like a house that needs a lot of work. 1 construction worker will do it, but if we put in 10, it's going to happen faster. And that's kind of how I look at this and to the safety piece. It's there's no downside to putting more workers on the job site, right? That's how I think about this in the body. There's no downside to my system having more repair, being alerted. So 4 ounces a day is kind of the standard, but if you're older or you want to, really boost your system, 8 ounces a day is something that I've seen really help. And actually that study that I mentioned with the genetic expression, they did 8 ounces a day. So we call it the magic 8. There's something magical, about that. And it's really simple. We just tell people baseline your health because Catherine, the one thing that's interesting is we don't know where it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's non-specific. And so we might mentally think, oh, my stomach is hurting. I want it to go there. But unbeknownst to us, there's something going on with our heart. And so it works on the heart, even though you don't even know that the issue is there. So if you baseline things, it gives you a nice snapshot because you might go, oh, wow, well, my stomach's still hurting, but I'm sleeping through the night better. And my heart's not racing, you know? So you want to kind of to give yourself a chance to see what it's doing, because it can be subtle. Like my nails grow longer, thicker, stronger. So does my hair. Like there's just some little indicators that there's, you know, good health. But that's the liquid. And the cool thing is you can also like put it in a spray bottle. Catherine and I were talking about how we just love to just spritz our face. I mean, it's completely fine. You can get it in your eyes. There's a lot you can do with it. Some people put it in a dropper and just drop it in their eyes. There's nowhere it can't go. So it's kind of safe to do a lot of things with.
Yeah, it's really, really important. I absolutely love, I mean, they do the gel, which we'll come on to as well, but I love spraying this on my face, and I just found it's just absolutely amazing for that, but also on my animals as well, for any nicks, cuts, sore patches, hairy growth, you name it, because I've got quite a good selection. Now, Beth, when it comes to animals taking it, it's really important not to add it to their feed, isn't it? They have to drink it separately.
It is, because the molecules are so reactive that they are very carefully kind of bubble wrapped while they're in that bottle. And as soon as they touch anything organic at all, then they immediately start going to work, and they go and find the imbalance in the body. It's a really magical thing. I love hearing all about the science. But so what happens with animals is the same exact thing. It's the same process where they will, and the beautiful thing about animals, if you have an animal just doesn't seem to be feeling really well, give them Asea, because those molecules will know. They will know where to go. They will know. And you're talking about the spray bottle. For years, we did not have the gel. We only had the spray bottle. And I still probably use that more in the barn. It's like our first line of defense, because very often they come in, if they bash themselves up and they have cuts and they have, puffy eyes and goopy eyes and things like that. And I'll use that spray bottle because you don't have to touch it. When you're rubbing gel on something, it hurts. And they go, but you spray that stuff and they love it. It is so fun to watch these young horses. I had one horse that came in and her eye was all swollen shut. And horses, when they come to me, it's kind of like starting school for the first time, where their immune systems are kind of building up. And so they get a lot of snotty noses and goopy eyes and things like that as their immune system is building. And when I first got this, I thought, this filly came in and her eye was almost swollen about 2/3 of the way shut, and she was just, obviously it was draining and it looked all horrible. And I thought, it was like within a couple months of me finding these molecules, and I thought, let's just see. I didn't think she was going to let me spray it, but I just kind of went sit, and I just started spraying and moving up into her eye. And as soon as she was a little bit like this, but as soon as it touched her eye and I started drenching her eye, she started leaning into me. That's the beautiful thing about animals too, is because they know when it feels good. They know when it's good. And the beautiful thing about that, I hate giving ophthalmic ointment to horses, because they have these little horrible little metal things that you have to put right in the eyeball, and it's awful. And so all I did was spray that. The next morning she came in, her eye was open, it was clear. I mean, it worked so quickly, and she was loving it. It was really cool. So I love how animals respond so positively to this, because they know that it's helping them. They know, it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I work a lot with animals self-medicating, and sometimes when something's shut down, or when the body or mind's got very out of balance or very stressed, then that innate response to self-medicate can switch off. But I agree with, I know some of your advice, Beth, was that, if you say got a dog or a cat or whatever it is, and they're not initially drinking it straight, then it's completely safe to syringe a little bit into their mouth. And then as they start to see the response, then that kicks off the self-selection. And you normally find that they will drink it quite happily after that. So there's lots of tips. And what I would say to people is, if you decide to try this, most of my listeners know that there's a lot of regulations about what can and cannot be said about natural products. So sometimes there's a lot of information that's available there that might not be able to go on a website. And that's where we're here to help. So if people decide to start trying this and they've got questions, please just come through to me. My contact details are always below, and how to order will be below the video, as always. And then if I don't know, I come through to one of these lovely ladies who know a lot more about it because they've been working with it for a lot longer than I have. But the reason I really wanted to share this with people is I'm pretty blown away with the responses that I've seen so far. Sorry, Beth.
Yes, Catherine, I was just going to mention that these molecules are not weight specific. People will say, oh, how much do I give my dog? How much do, he's a Labrador, or, she's a Shih Tzu or something like that. And it's not weight specific. So you don't have to say, well, if I'm drinking 8 ounces a day, my horse needs to be drinking a bottle a day. That's not the way it works. Basically, you can just, and I always try, and I'm sure you run into this too, Catherine, where I try to tell people that no one knows your animal like as well as you do. So please use your intuition. However, I love the way Danielle said it, is like, well, if you're going to err on the side one way or the other, give them too much. You might, why not? It's more workers on the job. So I just say, I would suggest this. If it was my dog, I would suggest this. Just see what happens. And it depends, again, it depends on age and how much they're trying to heal. I think that's important. And the other thing I think that Danielle touched on is very often people will look for some kind of results in one area, but our bodies have its own innate intelligence. And oftentimes you're getting some significant healing in another area that I've heard. My father said, this stuff isn't working for me because my thumbs are still sore from, the inflammation in my thumbs. And I say, I thought you said you were sleeping better and you're walking 3 miles a day at age 75. Well, yeah, that's true. That's interesting. So it's our bodies have this incredible innate intelligence. And I think that sometimes we just don't know how well it's working, but we know it's working. So
I would so go for that. And also there's a couple of things I wanted to add to that, ladies, because first and foremost, when animals are self-medicating, and we are just an animal, I would say we're just not as attractive because we don't have fur and tails. That's me for you. But the thing is, the body will only take on, and the animals are so much better in this with humans, because humans, we engage brain and we think, I've got this problem. Quite often people fire so much at it, or they expect a response individually. But animals innately know what level of healing their body can cope with. So, for example, if you've got a horse with ulcers and really severe back pains, they'll choose which one innately, not consciously, which one their body's going to work with first, and they won't take on too much. Anyone who's done a detox themselves and known that if you go on a heavy detox when your immune system's already down, you're going to have issues. So I think that's really important. And also this sort of mindset for the humans, coming back to your story, Danielle, is that when there's a lot of repair done, yes, you could be Wim Hof or Joe Dispenza and do it overnight. But for most of us mortals, the body will repair at the rate that it can cope with physically, emotionally, spiritually. And a lot of people, when they're looking at traditional medicine, let's take something like chemotherapy, they understand that if they go through that, it's going to be a fairly drawn out process, and then a fairly drawn out recovery process to regain hair and things like that. And I think the same things when our bodies are rehealing naturally, they will do it at the pace that they can cope with. So it's really important, isn't it, not to give up too soon if you're working with an existing condition. Or just all the toxins that are thrown at us now. I mean, detoxing is a massive thing. And for the best will in the world, I live in the middle of the countryside. I try to buy the best quality food and supplements and things that I can, but I can't control everything that's in my water, everything that's in the air, everything that's in my environment, the thoughts that people are saying to me.
Yep. It's so true. And I'm happy you said what you said, because I've never heard it actually put the way you put it, that, the body kind of knows and goes in that length of time. But the detox, I didn't even mention that with what these molecules do. So your glutathione levels actually get activated. This works on the NRF2 pathway. That's one of the genes that gets turned on, is the one that signals on that. And so we see that the antioxidants within our body are actually upregulated. And glutathione, if you're not familiar with it, I actually got it intravenously after my car accident, because it's known to help with inflammation in the system. Number one. Number two, it helps the body detoxify. And so it is such a powerful thing. That's why people ask me all the time, like, Danielle, why do you stay on this product? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because it's doing this job constantly because we're constantly inundated with things. Even like you, I make conscious choices about what I'm putting in my body, but I can't control some things. And so if I put this into my system, it's just going to keep my system, kind of regulating well, detoxifying what should be out. And to talk about it, the taste. Okay. I didn't mention that about the liquid. It tastes different to different people. And I will tell you, the more out of balance or more toxic the body is, the more intense the taste. And it kind of tastes like, it's not bad, but it kind of tastes like you jumped into a swimming pool with your mouth open. And you taste a little bit of pool water, but it can become like a barometer for you, where if it starts to taste poorly, I'm like, oh, my body's fighting something. And so I'll take more, to support my system in that. And that's just, one of the tips over the last 8 years that I figured out with this. And Beth, you've probably maybe seen the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, I have to tell a funny story about that. When I first brought it home, I was just on board, like I was in, man. I just thought this stuff was the coolest stuff I'd ever heard about. And I brought it home, and my husband was fighting a head cold at the time. And I said, yeah, from what I understand, this stuff is going to help you feel better. And I drank it, and I thought, oh yeah, it's pretty mild. Yeah, not bad. And he drank it and said, oh my gosh, this is the worst stuff I've ever had in my life. And I said, you are such a baby. Will you suck it up? Doesn't taste that bad. Well, I didn't realize that his body needed it badly. In another 2 or 3 days, he said, yeah, it's not bad at all. But I was merciless because we didn't know back then that was what was causing it. But he had a right to complain.
Yeah, and also your microbiome, I talk about this a sort of a lot. The more out of balance your body is, obviously your microbiome starts in your mouth. And I say it's a bit like having a good gremlin on one shoulder and a bad gremlin on another. And when your microbiome is very out of balance through any of these stressors that are put on our system, the microbiome in your mouth is like causing you to crave the wrong things. So the wrong things will taste good, and the good for you things will taste bad. And then as you rebalance your microbiome in your mouth, suddenly you start craving the good stuff. So you're so right, both of you. It's a really good monitor of where you are. And it's just like, okay, thanks for that feedback, body. I'll take a bit more. Although I am really upset. I'm not going to admit this to my husband, because when we first started taking it, I would have said I was more clean than him. But he loved the taste of it and I didn't. So I'm not going to tell him that means that he's I need it more than him. He won't watch this, or I say. But certain things you don't want to admit to your husband that they're right on. But yes, so it's really sort of amazing. And with the animals, again, don't be afraid. You are not going to do them any harm if you need to initially syringe it down and monitor their reaction to it. But, I promise you it is very, very safe. And, my main passion is working with animals and sort of giving them choice. But, sometimes you have to intervene, and I'd much rather someone intervened with this. Obviously, none of this is instead of, when you need conventional medication, veterinary or medical care. Every one of my listeners know that, but it's really safe to try. So the main thing I would say is don't, because a lot of people are being used to being able to add things to smoothies, add things to food, etc. Do not do that. You want to drink it neat for the reasons the ladies have just explained.
Yeah, well said. Glad you reminded everybody of that.
And I think what we have found is that oftentimes, especially with dogs, cats are usually, cats are cats. What can I say? But dogs, sometimes if you just put a little tiny bit of, it's anything that smells strongly like maybe Parmesan cheese or a tuna or something like that, and you put a tiny little bit in, yes, you're going to lose some of the efficacy of the molecules, but you'll find that as they drink it, then after a few days, you can start backing off, and pretty soon they're going to drink the liquid because they know how good it is for them. So there are all sorts of really interesting ways. Just be intuitive about it and be creative about however you get it in your animal. With my cat, I tuck him under my arm here, and I just I hold his chin, and I just squirt it in with a syringe in the side of his mouth, and he's wonderful about it. He says it's great. So, I think whatever works, however you can get the molecules in. And of course, the gel with animals has the added challenge to get it through the hair and into the skin. So like with dogs, you can put it inside their ears or on the bottom of their paws or whatever, where you can get through that hair and into the skin. So yeah, that's another thing. Just
quite a good area on the femoral artery in the groin area, because they tend to not have a lot of fur there. But I do use the spray a lot, and also you can, you know, use the spray on your animals, and each hair follicle will be attached to its own blood supply and absorb some in that way. So be creative and don't be afraid to build up gradually as well to sort of what you need. So I don't want to go too much into details for people at the moment, so I'd like to give them, but I think in terms of the actual product, the Asea and things, is there anything else urgently before we talk about the company and how people and things that you want people to know?
I was just thinking with dogs, because a lot of people have metal bowls.
Yes.
It should be in glass or plastic, because metal and ceramic it will react with, because it reacts with anything organic. So just if you're gonna, you know, put it down in a tray, glass, plastic, you're fine. But don't use metal, don't use ceramic.
That's a really good point. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we will, if people like this, we'll be back to talk a lot more about, you know, the products and different experiences. And there's so much information out there. So I would really, really encourage people to, you know, don't just think we're really restricted. I say we, I don't work for the company, but I work with so many. I used to have my own natural health products company, and there's so much stuff you cannot put on websites. Don't think the information is not available, ask, and then we can get it to you in other ways. But one thing I did want to mention is about if people want to try out the ordering process, because this is a company where you've got the opportunity to do it business-wise as well, but you can just buy it as a customer. So what are people's options for that, Danielle?
Yeah, there's 3 options. I'll explain the buffet, and then I always tell people, like, go eat what you want from the buffet. You know, you make that decision. You can buy it retail, which I don't know why anyone would want to purchase retail if you don't have to, but basically retail is a one-off option. So that link that's down there, you go to it, you pick the retail, you buy it one time, that's it. However, if you would like to get the wholesale pricing, there's a really easy way to do it. It's called being a preferred customer. And what happens is you just set it up to be on a monthly subscription. Like my dog's dog food is on a monthly subscription. You know, it's just convenient so you don't run out. And that actually allows you to accrue loyalty points. And those points you can use to get free product. So it's a really nice option, and it takes the price down a little bit. And then the associate option, that's really kind of geared for people that think, oh my gosh, this stuff sounds amazing. I have a lot of people that I know and love that would want to use this. You become an associate, and then people can purchase through you. And so it's a really nice option, you know, if that makes sense, if you're leaning that way. If you just want to try the products yourself, be a customer. If you think
they can upgrade if they want to, whenever they want, can't they?
Yes, they can. And what's really nice, when you become an associate, there's different packages that you can purchase. And those packs are phenomenal. I mean, like hundreds of dollars of savings because it's kind of like the bulk order. And so then you can get a lot of free stuff when you do that. Might make sense for an initial purchase, might make sense down the road, right? We never kind of tell anybody what to do. But if you have questions and you want to talk through it, reach out. I will tell you, I was blown away by Catherine. I work with hundreds of people asking and learning about these products. She asked me the most pointed, the most thoughtful questions. And I mean, I had to go to the president of the company to get answers to some of them because she was so thorough. So just, she's done the research for you, I will tell you. And anything that you might be wondering, reach out. She probably has the answer. We can get you the answer. There's nothing to hide here. You know, it's just that sometimes we don't know what people are wondering. So those are the options for ordering. And beyond that, like there's information will get you to take the products properly and get you started. There's a whole community of support.
Yeah.
And
that's what I've been blown away with. It's just that there's so much support, but you know, often people do have to ask for it because we don't want to bombard loads of people with loads of information that's just going into their spam box. Right. But what I say is always do it. And I loved it, Danielle, because when I reached out and actually it was Jay from Spiritually Raw that introduced me to these products, and I was a bit like, no, you know, I've got lots of stuff in my toolkit. I don't need something else. And then actually my really good holistic vet friend was like, no, Redox signaling molecules are absolutely amazing. Try it. And I've just been completely blown away. So, and I've been blown away. The transparency is really, really important. you know, I only work with people that I really trust, not only the products, but the people behind the products, because that's the energy that's going into it. And Beth, you've got some amazing seminars that you run and have available to people if they want to, haven't you, on the animal side of things? I've listened to loads of those and they're fantastic.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it, because, you know, when you do these seminars, you don't know if people are really listening. So it's nice to have some feedback. But I think I've heard so many wonderful stories when people tell their own personal story. But again, sometimes just seeing your animal get better speaks volumes. And so I think it's very nice when people are just trying to figure out, especially if you have a very analytical person, if somebody's very analytical and they're kind of saying, I'm not sure, this sounds awfully good to be true, and then just say, look, why don't you watch a few of these webinars? They're for about 8 years. I did a monthly phone call, but we only had the technology to record for a month before the recording was replaced by the next month. And then we went to this wonderful webinar format, which we loved, and we could archive. So those for about 2 years, we were archiving those every month. So there are probably close to 45 or 50 that are on this website. It's animalwebinar.com. It is password protected because we do have to be very careful about making medical claims. We all know this. And even actually with animals, it's even a little bit more stringent because this is a human supplement and we have to be careful about prescribing it for animal consumption. So we have to be very careful about that. However, having said that, it works the same on every living cell, and we know it's safe. We know it's safe. So sometimes that's that animalwebinar.com. When you just say, go and glance around, they're all little thumbnails. So you can see this one's about horses, this one has a cat, this is about dogs. And you can kind of just browse around in there and see. Most of them are we always limited them to about 30 minutes. So it doesn't take very long to watch. And hopefully that'll help people just kind of grasp the idea. And again, going back to Danielle talking about a subscription, the neat thing about a subscription is, again, sometimes our bodies take a while to heal. Sometimes that healing process, even though we know that it's helping because we understand what's happening in the body, really to feel it, Danielle, took 3 months. So we always really encourage people to please just go on a 3-month subscription. Give it 3 months. If you're going to give this, if you're really going to give this product a try, give it 3 months at least, in which case that's where that wonderful subscription program comes in, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, and if you don't, you can cancel at any time anyway, so you're not selling your life away. But I just want to thank you ladies so much, because Danielle, starting with you, your story is amazing, and I don't think people realize, you know, at 23 years of age, you had, I mean, that people can watch more about your story because it really is so inspirational, but 23 years of age, to be so active, have all these plans in front of you, and then have such a catastrophic thing happen to you, and to have turned that around in the way you have, where you're now helping. So, I mean, I've gone to Danielle so many times already for advice about this, and Beth for advice about what about this with an animal and things, because I'm not arrogant enough to say I know when I don't know, and it's so helpful. So I really just, you know, you're such an inspiration of how something so good can come as something so devastating. So, you know, well done you, honestly, it really is. Yes. And Beth, I just love the way you've just been so generous with your time and knowledge, because, you know, it takes a lot of time and knowledge and effort, not just on pulling all the organization together, but like you said, the technology side of things. And when these people, when Beth and Danielle are sharing all this, they're sharing it because they genuinely want to help humanity and all creatures great and small. And then the other rewards are a side effect of that, not the driving force behind it. And it's very much the same with me. So thank you so much for your time, ladies. I really hope that we can do another one of these, because there's so much more I want to tell people about. But all the links will be below the video. And if you've got any questions at all, please come to me. And if I don't know, I will come to one of these two wonderful ladies to help me out. Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Yeah, and thank you, Catherine.
Speak soon.
Wonderful, Catherine. It was great fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.